Good morning, everybody. So my name is Pedro Chavez. I'm going to be giving a presentation on how you guys can help the undocumented. Thank you very much for inviting me to come. You guys are Santa Paulans. I'm assuming everybody here is an American citizen or legal resident. So you guys have a very unique ability to help undocumented people. What I would recommend just off the bat, stay informed on things that are going on because things are going to change very, very quickly. This presentation I'm giving will probably be invalid in about 2 weeks. So, so make sure to keep up to date with things if you want to help your community. So just really quick, this is what we're going to be going over. We're going to talk a little bit about who I am, how you guys can volunteer, advocate, directly help immigrants, and if you guys are business owners, what you guys can do to protect your businesses from ICE raids. And also mention a few free services that you guys can access. So that's me. I've been an immigration lawyer since about 2019, but started in the immigration space probably in 2017 in law school. Started working at Catholic Charities, started a nonprofit in Tijuana to help refugees find free lawyers called Fee of Return. It's a 501c3. That's me at the shelters in Tijuana, Mexico, under my nonprofit. I've been giving PowerPoint presentations for Catholic organizations for a while, and been interviewed by news sources and stuff. Can you talk a little louder? Oh, sorry. I hope you guys can hear. Sorry. If you guys pick it up, this will do it. But I'll speak up. Anyway, next up. Those are just the orgs that I've worked with in the past. UCLA. Well, you can see the logos. There's a few logos in there. Okay. So as for what you guys can do as U.S. citizens, step one I would suggest is volunteer. So there's a lot of volunteer organizations in the area that might be able to use you guys. I would say that if you guys were in LA, here there's a lot less. I'm new in the Santa Paula area, but a quick Google search will help you find it. But what I would recommend is looking for legal service providers that are on the EOIR list of free legal services that the immigration courts use. So Van Nuys has an immigration court. Van Nuys maintains a list of all the free legal service providers. You can look it up on Google. It's a PDF, and it'll have a list of all the legal service providers that offer free services in that area. And once you see that list, you can call them and see if there's volunteer opportunities for you. There's all sorts of things you can do for them, but what I would recommend is do not try to help immigrants on your own. The only reason is you guys don't know what immigration law is. What seems to be something very simple, like filling out a form or doing a translation, could result in serious consequences for the immigrant if you don't know what you're doing. There's situations of immigrant fraud. And also, if you guys start giving advice, you're not lawyers, so you might be accused of unauthorized practice of law. So I would not suggest going to try to help yourself. I know you guys are well-intentioned. A lot of people do try to help their community that way, but I would really advise going through an organization that has a license to do it and has an attorney supervising. So this is why you shouldn't do it yourself. Like I said, unauthorized practice of law, or nonprofits that do this sort of work usually have a supervising attorney that signs off on everything. They also have accreditation for certain programs. Accredited representatives, Catholic Charities San Diego has them, Catholic Charities LA has them. A lot of orgs use family services. They all have accredited representatives that are authorized, but they have to go through a process to get that authorization. So filing mistakes leads to rejections. If let's say you want to do a family petition for somebody, that family petition will be over $2,000 just in filing fees, and also a year of their time. And if you do it incorrectly, they've lost the filing fee and they've lost that year. If you're helping somebody through the organization as a volunteer, at the very least, an attorney will sign off on it. So the odds of rejection are much less, just because attorneys we do this all the time. We keep up to date with what these forms actually do. And so you can save them the money that they would have to pay for USCIS filing fees for this petition, and you can save them the rejection in the event that you committed a mistake and they lose a year of their time because they have to reapply. Falsification is a felony. You guys have to be careful on these forms because they're not allowed to lie. You guys aren't allowed to lie as a preparer. But for that, like I said, join a nonprofit. They'll guide you through that and sign off on it. And also applying for a benefit can trigger deportation proceedings. So sometimes people with a criminal history, let's say they're legal permanent residents and they want to apply for citizenship, but they committed a crime. Sometimes I would advise not applying for citizenship at all because it'll end up putting them in deportation proceedings because they will be checked. They'll have a fingerprinting process, and if they come up with a criminal history that they may have forgotten about, I wouldn't do the application without doing FBI background checks, sheriff checks. And so if you just do an application randomly, it could land them in immigration court proceedings. Same thing if you're applying for a benefit that they don't qualify for. So let's say you try to do an asylum petition, they have no status. If that fails, they'll end up in deportation proceedings because they didn't have a status to begin with. So there's all sorts of immigrant benefits that you guys can apply for them. But if you do it wrong, they could get a notice that they have to appear in front of a judge. And if they lose that case, then they'll be deported. So Bar Association says notario. So this is for notarios, but it's basically anybody that's not like a licensed form prepper, which with a $150,000 bond to do this. They have higher rejection rates and they often trigger deportation. And that's because there's a lot of unscrupulous form preppers that don't have bonds. They don't have a $150,000 bond to their organization. And because of that, they'll just fill out a form for money, but they won't check if the person qualifies for the benefit, and they won't check if doing this will trigger deportation proceedings. They'll just do it for the money. So, oh no, I hope that didn't. There we go. Good. All right, here we go. So work with an org. If you fill out the form, attorney will supervise it and sign off on it. There's other things you can do for organizations. You can translate documents if you guys have foreign language skills. If you're Spanish speakers, that helps a lot. And you don't have to have language skills in order to volunteer at a nonprofit. There's a lot of English speakers that could use legal services. Cameroonians speak English. Canadians sometimes speak English. Some long-term residents of the United States that are undocumented could maybe use a DACA application, even though they're not accepting DACA. Well, they're accepting them, but they're not processing them right now. But they could use an application submitted. You can teach English classes. I teach English classes at what's it called? Blanchard Library, just because I used to teach English classes in my hometown in Brownsville. My parents don't speak English, so I kind of think it's a nice thing to do, and it really does help. So you guys don't need to know Spanish to teach English classes, so you can do that. You can teach civics classes, also hopefully in both languages, but at the very least, you can teach it in English. They do have to learn English to get naturalized, so, U.S. history, that sort of stuff. You can offer employment if you guys are business owners. Depending on how large your organization, you're going to have this discussion on whether you want to hire someone, and you want to make sure that they have proper work authorization. But let's say you're in a mixed family where one person is authorized to work and another person isn't authorized to work. You can offer the person that's authorized to work a job because they have authorization to work, and that will benefit the person that isn't authorized to work. Resume writing is also a thing. Some people just need a nice resume to get a job. You guys can help with that. And you can interpret for an attorney. So you'd be surprised how many immigration attorneys don't speak Spanish, or how many immigration attorneys don't speak Russian or some other thing. So we do rely on interpreters to communicate with clients sometimes. I have a Portuguese client right now that I use an interpreter for just because I don't speak Portuguese. And we go back and forth, and they hired me because I do specific removal defense and they're in removal. So we do require interpreters. Nonprofits will guide you through that and find what you guys need. But like I said, you want to Google the EOIR pro bono list for a list of those nonprofits in your area so that you can reach out to them and see what volunteer opportunities are there. So that's what I would recommend. And they have volunteer forms on most of their websites. If you were in a bigger city, it'd be easy. It's a little bit harder for you guys because you will probably have to drive out. Catholic Charities Ventura is actually trying to start something, so maybe that'll be in the future. All right. So this is the second step. You can advocate. You can write letters to Congress. So there's different types of letters. Most congressmen have like immigrant departments within the congressional offices. So you can write Congress just to say I support immigrants. That's one way to do it. You can also write congressmen to get an immigration application going. Sometimes immigration applications are stalled, and you can be a letter writer for somebody's specific petition, and their immigration officers can maybe speed things up at USCIS. That happens often. So if, say, a mother petitions for their son, a mother U.S. citizen petitions for their son who's a foreigner, or vice versa, that I-130 petition for a family relative might be stuck in USCIS for a year or longer. Sometimes they just get stuck because of large volumes. If you know this individual, you can write a letter to Congress on their behalf, probably working with their attorney. But you can write that letter and hopefully get that case unstuck and processed so that they can get their green card through family petition. And like I said, you can also just write letters to show your support for immigrants. You can give nonprofits money. So again, EOIR pro bono list is a good way to do it. You might want to check if they're a 501c3. If they're on that list, they are. And your donations do help them keep going. The lawyers that work there make very, very little money. I started off that way at Catholic Charities San Diego. We got paid almost nothing. But we did get a lot of experience, and we did help a lot of people. And we were always very tight on funds. Like there was a lot of demand, There was very few lawyers in San Diego. I was for a while. I was like the only Spanish speaker full time attorney there in the port of entry of San Diego. It's like yeah, well we did end up hiring part time workers and lawyers and stuff, but they're always tight on cash. Trump just froze federal funds for most of these organizations. Some are affected, some aren't. Sometimes their immigration programs are based on private donations, like your donations. So your private donations go directly to help the immigrant through that immigrant program, and that'll help more because right now federal funds are kind of blocked. Uh, you can go to rallies, join newsletters. That's how I find out about them. I find them about them on Facebook. I miss them sometimes. Apparently, there was one here yesterday in Santa Paula. I didn't know about it, and I'm an immigration lawyer, so I would keep up to date with that. Maybe do better at tracking your Facebook, and go to the rally, show your support because you want your elected officials to know that you're passionate about this, so that come next election cycle, they're going to make it an issue and they're going to vote to help immigrants as opposed to the opposite. Okay, so here are the ways that you can directly help immigrants. So this is like very specific. This is if you know somebody. So the first one is a caregiver authorization affidavit. A lot of immigrants are really worried, especially those with family, that if they get picked up by ICE, what's going to happen to their kids? Who's going to pick them up from school? You can Google caregiver authorization affidavit, California, and it's a pretty simple form. You fill it out. I don't believe it needs to be notarized, and that will help for temporary care. And that way, if somebody gets picked up, you guys can be the next in line to go pick them up at school and take care of them for a short period of time. I don't think many people are going to have to use that just because ICE has a priority thing. They're going to go after people with deportation orders and criminal histories, and if they're even under 2 years, if they have a family here, if they have a U.S. citizen child, they're more than likely going to be released on the same day. But there will be a hassle in that if they get picked up by accident, they're going to be gone for a few hours while they get processed, and that could coincide with a student's release time from school. So in order for the kid not to just be waiting there and then having family services pick them up, you guys could show up with a caregiver affidavit and pick them up. Once you filled it out, make sure to talk to the school to make sure that they know that this could happen and that they have a copy of your caregiver authorization. The second thing is CJIS sponsorship. So CJIS sponsorship is also very specific to a person. It really only applies for you guys if you come across a child that doesn't have parents. If they're an undocumented alien child, that's what the legal term is, an undocumented child that came in with no family. A family attorney can help you guys do the predicate order process to kind of get custody of the child. If you do that, then that child will qualify for legal permanent resident citizen. It's kind of like an adoption. I don't do the state aspect of it. I do the immigration aspect of it. So step one is the state aspect where you guys would get custody of the child. And then state part two is once you have custody of the child, I use that custody to get them a green card and eventually citizenship. So that is one benefit for a child. More than often, we see this type of case when it's one parent, one child, and the father has abandoned the child. So the qualification procedures is abandonment, abuse, or neglect of a child, and it has to only have happened with one parent. So if one parent abandons a child and the other parent's good, you can do it without. You can just get the CJIS order for that one parent because that parent abandoned the child or abused the child or neglected the child, and that happens if the father has nothing to do with the child. So that more than likely that's what we see. But occasionally you might see a child that has no parents, is staying with a relative like an uncle or something, and you guys could step in and be the CJIS caregiver, sponsor / guardian, legal guardian. Next one is affidavit of support. That's if you know a family that qualifies for a family petition. So it's a mother and father petitioning for their kid, or a kid petitioning for their parent, or a spouse petitioning for another spouse. They say it's a family petition. One has documents, the other one doesn't, but they don't meet the financial requirements to do the petition. So even if they've like I fell in love with a foreigner and I want to petition them, if I don't make over 125% of the poverty guidelines, that petition will be denied. But you can have joint sponsors added onto it. So if I don't make enough money per year, I can't do the petition, but I can get somebody else to sign off as a joint sponsor in the affidavit of support, a separate affidavit of support, and their income will combine with my income, and then they can do the petition. And that happens. Sometimes we have petitions with 3 or 4 different sponsors just to make the income requirement. If all of them are low income or have large families, all of that gets calculated into what the minimum amount of money you need in order to successfully petition for a family member. That it does come with some risks though, because you are tied to that person for basically the next 10 years or until they become a citizen or until they die. So if they start taking means tested benefits, if they start taking welfare, the government has the power to sue you to recover that money. So that is something that you have to discuss with an individual. That's why I call this direct help. Like, this is for somebody that you know, and you want to act as their sponsor for the affidavit of support to make the income requirement. You will be tied to that person for 10 years. 40 qualifying quarters, meaning they have to work for 40 quarters full time, and for about 10 years, or until they become a citizen, or until they die. If they take any means tested benefit, the government can sue you to recover the money. That's what it means to file this thing. So be careful who you decide to do this for, but if you do, that is a form of direct help that you can do so that somebody can get status in the United States. You can fund or fundraise for legal defense. So if someone's in deportation proceedings, expect to pay at least $10,000. That's usually my base price for somebody in immigration court. The cases can last about a year. It's like buying a car. So if somebody gets stuck there, you can pay. If you're independently wealthy, you could pay for their lawyer fees, or you can fundraise for their lawyer fees, because it's going to be very expensive to protect someone from deportation. Some lawyers charge more than $10,000 base minimum price. Some charge less. They're going to have to do a few consultations to find whatever is the right fit. Also, the experience level of the attorney matters. If they're brand new, maybe they'll charge $4,000 or $6,000. If they're very, very skilled, and maybe they'll charge, I've heard, $40,000 in New York. So it's really, and it's also a case specific thing. Like I told you, my price, it's $10,000 base price, but that will go up depending on the complexity of the case. If they need asylum, it might go up. If they need other things, like, I will evaluate the case. It's just I've never done one for less than 10, just because it takes over a year of my time, and I have multiple hearings I have to go to. So take that into consideration. So I would also suggest people start their own legal defense funds for their own families in case they see this in the future. If they're really afraid, put it in a bank. Like, start gathering money, because lawyer fees will happen, even if they get a free lawyer. Because, so I'll go back a few slides. The UIR pro bono list does have free lawyers. I used to be one. We got salaries at Catholic Charities, but they do represent in removal defense for free. San Diego doesn't do it anymore, but they used to, and there's also all organizations. But it's going to be a long haul to get a free lawyer, because there's a lot of demand for free lawyers. What I would do most of the time was not most of the time, but a big chunk of my week was signing denial of legal services letters. I'm sorry, but we don't have capacity to represent you at this time. Please try again in the future. Sign Pedro Chavez. And then those would go out. And so it's hard to find a free lawyer. If they do find one, great. They're good lawyers. They have supervising attorneys. It's a good thing. But if they can't, then they'll have to find a private lawyer, and they can be expensive. The next thing you could do is give them money. You can always just give them money. I mean, they're human beings. They have legal fees. They're going through a stressful time. Give them some money. I mean, like, unless they're very proud, they might not take it. But they need food. They need to pay the rent. They might just need your support, the helping hand. So consider that.
You mean like money, cash?
Yeah, just give them cash. Give them 20. Like, I'm sorry. Like, put it in an envelope. Be very discreet about it. You don't want to be like, here. Like, you want to be like, yeah, I know you're going through a hard time. Maybe put it in a card, like what's a Walgreens card. I know you're going through a hard time. Here you go. We're praying for you. Here's an extra $100 just to get you. Hopefully it helps. It does help. All right.
That's what we're trying to do here.
Mhm.
Is we're raising funds for Poder Popular, so
Mhm.
that people and the families can come here
Mhm.
if they need financial assistance.
Well, it helps. So the next step is offer to drive to San Diego. I added that one just because a lot of people can't drive to San Diego right now. So there's checkpoints within 100 miles of the U.S. border. You guys, I think, are pretty safe out here. But if they have a family, or they need to pick something up, if you guys know them, you can always just offer it. Look, if you guys have anything in San Diego, I'm going there. I can do the trip. Because if they go to San Diego, they might get stopped at a checkpoint, asked about their status, and placed in removal proceedings. Same thing for flying in international airports, because they have CBP checks there. They can ask. So right now is a very difficult time, because these checkpoints are there, and they're basically stuck in this middle area. So if you guys go to the border and they need something, offer to pick it up for them. Okay. So this is specific if you guys are business owners. You can protect your employees by putting private or staff only or employees only on your doors. ICE cannot go into these areas without a judicial warrant. More than often, they don't have judicial warrants. They have administrative warrants, which is just to facilitate an arrest. So if you're like here, ICE can go into that waiting room area, but they can't come over here if there. I didn't actually check, but I was just putting a private thing on that door. This being the private area, make sure it's nicely labeled private, but the reception area will always be available to ICE because it's a public area within normal business hours. Same thing for parking lots. So they can go in there, anywhere that's public, they can enter to facilitate the arrest, but they can't enter private areas without a judicial warrant. Most of them don't have it. Make sure to have these signs so that they don't get confused and think that a private place is a public place. Uh, Another thing is if let's say you have undocumented people, these private things will only work for so long. They can't just stake out the business and wait for them to leave. They eventually have to leave. But what it does is if they go into the private area, then they can just stay there for a while, call their family, call their attorney, get things in order mentally. Because if they're really there to pick them up, ICE might just stake out the place until they leave, because they can't just stay outside waiting for them to leave. So doing this will at least give them a few moments to prepare themselves for what's to come, and they won't be able to enter. Yeah.
So if this is, they go to a private area because they do have a judicial warrant with the person's name on it,
So if they have a judicial warrant, they can enter.
Yeah.
So even private area won't work.
but when they're there, can they like look at everybody else that might be in the room
Yeah.
as well?
Once they're there, if they can establish reasonable suspicion, they can start questioning everybody for status. It's not a high bar. They're already there. They might just question people, and once they have like, oh well, this person's undocumented, maybe his friends are too. Then they can pick up collateral from that area, but they have to be there for a specific purpose. They can't just be there to check status. Uh, so this is what I would just recommend: keeping just giving them some time, putting these signs where you don't want ICE to go. So this is the difference between judicial order and an administrative one. Oh, it's still in Spanish. I took this from another PowerPoint. But this is a judicial order. You can see it says United States District Court on top. It has a judge signature on the bottom. This is an administrative order that they say that there does say warrant on it, but it's warrant for removal. It'll say Department of Homeland Security or Department of Justice, and it'll be signed by an agent. And this might change actually, because too many people know what these look like. But make sure they won't have a judge's signature, and the department in charge will be the Department of Justice or Department of Homeland Security. This is how you can tell. It's district court, search and seizure warrant, judge. That's the most important part. If they have one of these, you do have to let them anywhere they want to go, as long as it says the area and it's within 14 days validity. So they can come in here. If it's private, doesn't matter. They have a judicial warrant, but most don't. So do ask, and if they don't have these things, they can only enter the reception area.
So are they going to try to make their non-judicial ones look like that, so you can't really get them?
We kind of think they might. So this is what they look like right now. It's a very simple, almost empty form. You can really tell just because it has the Department of Homeland Security on top, or it sometimes have Department of Justice, warrant of removal, deportation, and immigration officer. So you can tell them now. They might change them, but they can't change the wording of them, because the wording is really the key to it. So they could change the font, make it look more like this. They can change the font. They could add more information into it, but the key wording is still the same. So you have to really read them, and also be careful, because they can enter if they're invited in. So if somebody says please come in, or any worker, then they don't need warrants. They can just come in because they've been invited. So
Like a vampire?
yeah, basically exactly like a vampire.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, if they're invited in, and then you need a holy water to get them out. All right. So free services. These are just some free services. I'm trying to help here in Santa Paula and Our Lady of Guadalupe, 4 to 6. I do free consultations during that time. Same thing, Catholic Charities. After this meeting, I'm going to go to Catholic Charities and do free consultations there in Catholic Charities Ventura. And so take advantage of that. I do free consultations, and I'll check the immigration forms. And during that set time. Outside of that time, I do charge. So
Okay, so you are at the church.
Our Lady of Guadalupe, 4 to 6,
Okay, and that's Monday.
Mondays.
Okay, and then
And
you're at the charities, right?
Catholic Charities Ventura, Tuesdays, 9 to 4,
Okay.
unless I'm here.
All right, so when I send people over there, do I send them directly to the church, or do I send them to the auditorium? Or
So Catholic Charities Ventura is like an office building. So just send them there on Tuesdays, and just have them knock on the Catholic Charities door and say, I'm here to see the immigration lawyer.
Okay.
And then they'll put them in the list, and I'll talk to them.
And then at the church is not in the church, it's in the auditorium?
Yeah, it's in the auditorium on the side.
Okay.
There's also a line, but just make sure that they ask to see me. Otherwise, they'll be in the food line. There's also a food line at the same time.
Okay.
Yep. This is just a printout of the EOIR list that I kept mentioning. If you Google it, you can find this list of free legal service providers, but this is what it'll look like. This is from West Los Angeles Immigration Court. El Rescate is a nonprofit that helps immigrants. Oaxaca Now for profit, helps immigrants. International Institute of Los Angeles helps immigrants. So if you Google it, you'll find this PDF, and you'll see a big list of nonprofits that help immigrants, and you can volunteer for them. And I think that's it. All right.
Question.
Yeah, question answer.
There's a lot of paperwork detail.
Mhm.
It seems like it takes quite a bit of time. We're also hearing on the news that flights are taking people out of the country.
Mhm.
This one I heard is to Colombia.
Well,
Have they been in custody for months?
so it depends. Colombia, as far as I can tell, does accept their deportees, and so if they've been in custody, it's because they had deportation proceedings for a long period of time, and they were waiting to see an immigration judge.
Okay.
Once they saw the immigration judge while in prison, and the judge ordered them removed, then it's just a matter of filling up the plane and then taking that plane to Colombia and dropping them off there.
When you say in prison, you mean a detention center?
Detention center, but it's a federal prison usually that has like Otay Mesa in San Diego has one. There's one in Arizona. There's one. There are federal prisons all over the place, but they have their specific wing for immigrants, usually run by a private corporation.
And so they keep them, how long do they stay there? Do you know? Because
So it's up to them. If they could be stayed there just for a short period of time while they arrange for a flight out to deport them. If they are in immigration court proceedings, then they'll be there until the proceedings end or until they voluntarily leave. So they can always say, I've had enough of this, and some do. I don't want to see a judge. I've been in prison for like a month now, some 6 months. I'm not going to wait for my hearing. Just let me leave. And at that point, they'll sign something that says that it's a deportation order, and they'll get it into a plane and leave, go home.
now what is the role, that's my turn.
Mhm.
What is the role for the consulates
Mhm.
to go, do they actually go to the detention centers and see who's there? There's no
No.
representation from their country?
So the consulate's job is basically to orient their citizens as to like what options are available to them, and that's if they're not detained. But they won't go into the prison. Like to go into a federal prison requires like blocking out a good 6 hours of time. You have to go into a waiting room and you have to wait there to see your client or whoever you're going to see, go through security checks, and then eventually you get into a little room to talk to them. The consulate's not doing that. And even if they did, they don't have the capacity to have a lawyer that would actually do something to try to get them out. So no, as far as I know, consulates aren't doing it.
Okay, but my understanding is that the new president gave money to the consulates.
Mhm.
We're talking about the Mexican consulates, because the other ones,
Mhm.
some of them are not even here.
Yeah.
That the Presidente Sheinbaum,
Oh.
dio dinero
Mhm.
a los consulados so they can have the money for immigration attorneys to represent them.
I
Do you know
don't-
anything about that?
As far as I know, no. If the President Sheinbaum has started what's called a removal defense program within the consulate, then it would function the same way that any removal defense program does, in that they are going to hire an attorney. I could apply for the position and get hired, and then that one attorney will represent them at the detention center or in non-detained proceedings. But attorney salaries are large, even in the nonprofit sector. It would be at least 60,000 minimum for a brand new attorney out of law school, maybe 80,000 per attorney, and then that attorney has limited on how many cases they can take just because of their own time constraints. So if it sounds to me, and it makes sense, that the consulate might start a removal defense program, which means they're going to hire attorneys that will do it, but it's going to be a limited capacity. They're going to be in the same level as Catholic Charities San Diego with their removal defense program, Jewish Family Services with their removal defense program, Casa Cornelia, El Otro Lado, a bunch of nonprofits that hire attorneys to do this for free. So it would be just like one more organization that gets added into the mix. So it's not going to do much. It's just going to add an extra maybe 3 or 4 lawyers per consulate probably to handle a giant demand for it. So I think that's really what it is. I haven't heard about it, but what you're describing is there's funding now to hire lawyers to add on to the, yeah.
Can a business, say a restaurant, refuse to serve a cup of coffee to a nice person if they recognize who it is?
I really don't know that answer to that question. So if you know he's a nice attorney and just say, I don't want to serve you, that's more of a civil thing. Or a discrimination thing.
Can a business refuse?
So those are the signs that was like I have the right to refuse service to anyone I want, kind of thing. Those signs. I don't know about that. I've never considered it. It's not immigration related.
So Pedro,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm one of the founders of Swap Me Justice
Uh-huh.
out at Oxnard College with Vanessa Frank, who's another immigration attorney.
Mhm.
And we've been getting a lot of questions from people saying that would we be forming a target
Mhm.
for ICE enforcement because we're not necessarily we do citizenship applications with volunteers or with immigration attorney oversight and
Mhm.
DACA and green card renewals and things like that. But people are concerned that we might be becoming a target for ICE enforcement at some time in the future. And we are open. We are like a tent. We're a tent city that
Yeah.
shows up once a month. What is the thing that we can explain to them that?
So even if you're a tent city, if you actually get a physical tent, that would work as a private area if you put private on it. But
We don't have physical tents.
okay, oh good. So they'll be able to go in the outside areas that you'd label reception, even if you have like a rope. But if they see the immigrant on the other side, they're just going to wait it out. I can't guarantee that you won't be subject to work site enforcement. Right now, they're targeting people with removal orders and people with criminal records. That's all they have capacity to do. When Trump became president, he didn't hire 1,000 more ICE agents. He still has the same number that Biden did. So he's still limited by that. These ICE agents have to sleep. They have families. The planes have to be refueled. They have to be repaired. So he's limited on that, unless he gets more funding. So he activated the military, but that's more border protection. So right now, you're not a priority. The priorities are removal orders, because to pick up your people requires them to go into the immigration court system if they've been longer than 2 years. So if you have a thing, then that would backlog the court even further. It would start new immigration court proceedings, and it wouldn't result in deportations. Because if they target your people, 100 immigrants at your nonprofit that is exposed, and ICE decides to target that, and they're all there for 2 years, then they pick them up. They have to release them into the immigration court system, and then they've just caught and released, which they don't want to be seen doing. So I wouldn't worry about it. The risk is very, very minimal that they'll target you, unless they have a high level priority that they do want to target. So if they have a real bad criminal that does have a deportation order, then they will go in there to look for that one person. But I don't think they'll put everybody in removal, just because it would take too long and it'd be too expensive.
We do have the public defenders there as well.
Yeah, and that's another thing. They're aware of who's at these events. This event, they're aware of the Our Lady of Guadalupe event. They're aware that the mayor was at the Our Lady of Guadalupe event. The sheriff was there. They're like, I have no doubt that ICE, the Oxnard office in ICE, knew about Our Lady of Guadalupe on Sunday. They probably know that Our Lady of Guadalupe is coming, is going to do another one on the 16th. But they're not they're not priority. They only have so many agents. It's bad visuals, and it wouldn't result in anything. It really wouldn't. Not as far as deportations are. So you take a risk either way. They could technically go in there and go into public areas and pick someone up, but I don't think they will. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
When you say criminals, are those felony criminals or,
Yeah.
or not misdemeanors?
So at this point, anybody that committed any type of robbery crime is considered a criminal. Arrested, convicted, doesn't really matter, as long as they were arrested for robbery at the very minimum. Before, it used to be really serious felonies that were kind of priorities, but
And that according
yeah.
to Trump's press secretary, she said, if you're undocumented, you're a criminal.
Well, that's the question I was just going to ask. This guy, Tom Homan.
The borders are.
Yeah, he'll be asked a question by an interviewer, and the question will be, well, you're just focusing on criminals right now. Well, if you're not here legally, you're a criminal.
So
but I mean, is that more of a bluff? Because I had the same question. I mean, they're limited by their resources.
So they're not criminals.
Well, of course they're not criminals.
But it's a civil thing unless they entered undocumented without going through a port of entry. Then they technically committed a misdemeanor for unlawful entry, unless they have multiple entries, and in that case, it is a felony to multiply try to come into the United States. So there are criminals in the group, but 90% of them aren't. And as far as this is being used as a justification for deportations, what he's really going after is it's a justification for picking up collaterals. ICE doesn't usually go after collaterals, but right now they are. And their justification is they're all criminals, even if they're not, but they are subject to deportation if they don't have status. And so they're going after collaterals. It's really what Tom Homan is kind of getting at.
What does collateral mean?
So collateral is a person that, so if ICE comes to pick up a certain person who is a criminal,
Okay.
who does have a deportation order, and there's people around them, and they have the reasonable suspicion to question them, then the collaterals are the people around them that also get deported because they don't have status.
Okay, are you done with your presentation?
Oh, yeah,
Because I have John facing that screen.
Oh, I'm totally done. I can sit down if you like it.
Are we done? So we can
Yeah.
turn this over so he can see the rest of the people?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And
You want to sit right next to me, right here?
Okay.
And I'll just pull this back,
so
so he doesn't have to watch the whole black screen.
okay.
Are you able to see, John?